Good morning, everyone. This is Jody King with Alaska Apex. Sorry about the delay on my part. I was having difficulties getting my headset reconnected to the Bluetooth, so hopefully everyone can hear me. If you can hear me clearly, would somebody click the raise hand on the, perfect. Thanks, Cal. I appreciate it. All right, so welcome. This morning we're going to talk about how to research the government contracting market. And this is a webinar I've been doing for quite a while, and we've had changes in the various databases that we've always used to do government contracting. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we get started, I'd just like to give a few housekeeping rules. One, welcome. I'm glad to see you all joining me this morning. Two, this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be posted on our apexalaska.org website under training events and then on demand. And usually we have that recording posted within a week of the event. Once that recording is made available, I will email everyone that registered and send them the link to the recording. And next item, under handouts, we have two documents that I've uploaded. So I do have all of the slides that I'm going to be showing for today's presentation. And also I have uploaded the handouts from the FPDS, the Federal Procurement Data Site. They had a lovely worksheet on, what did they call it? Their quick tooltip or something but it gave all of the various search. That is no longer available since the FPDS website is down. So this is still an incredibly valuable document that we're going to be using even while doing the searches in SAM for that past data procurement, because it's a reminder of the things that we should be able to look for. So keep that, stash that away somewhere on your hard drive, and that'll be valuable information. The last housekeeping item is I really hope to have an interactive group. Please feel free to ask questions, throw comments. We are going to play a little bit with the live demo on SAM. So if there's a search suggestion you'd like me to try, feel free to let me know. There's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can enter anything in the Q&A box, or if you're just not feeling like typing, or if you're on a mobile device and who wants to mess with a tiny keyboard, feel free to just click raise your hand, and I'm happy to unmute you. You get to unmute yourself. It's faster than it sounds, and you can have that live mic and we can have that conversation. Just remember, if you do have a live mic, this is being recorded, so try not to give anything personal that you wouldn't want on the recording. All right, well, with that being said, I'm going to pause. I'm going to do a new opening just for the purposes of the recording, and then we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. This is Jody King. I'm the Assistant Director with the Alaska Apex Accelerator. And this morning, I have a wonderful webinar on how to research the government contracting market. We're going to talk about how to search for the data necessary to help you make those informed business decisions. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So this is some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to do an introduction to market research. We're going to talk about conducting the market research, reviewing current clients, using that as kind of our start point, identifying the government counterparts to those current clients. And we're really going to focus on defining the target because we need to know what we're searching for. We're going to move into the federal contracting market research. We're going to talk about developing search criteria and then looking for contract opportunities. We're going to then scroll through several federal databases. We're going to do an overview of the federal websites and databases. And we're going to talk about tying the data together from solicitation to contract history. So how can we look for, we see a new activity, how can we do that past procurement search to see if we can find out more information on both the solicitation and the incumbent. And then we're going to talk about researching other businesses. Again, if we're talking incumbents, possible competitors, or even looking for potential teaming partners that we'd kind of like to do a little research and vet them out before we enter in some sort of business contract with them. And then last, we're going to look at state and local purchasing opportunities. So I went through and updated all of the websites last night, so we are ready to go. Let's get started. A lot of lovely things to talk about. All right, so why do we research? We want to know what's going on in that contracting market, because quite simply, the government is vast, and finding that entry point, that start point, we need to know what we're looking for. We need to find out those agencies that are buying what we sell, so that we can start beginning that successful journey into government contracting. So market research is essential to understanding your customers and your competition. It allows a company to make informed decisions. Market research can identify trends that affect sales and profitability. And good market research can increase your success rate. It is an effective use of your business development time and money, such as staff time and resources and project management considerations. And all of that sounds wonderful, but what if you're a 1 or 2 person shop as owner operator? Well, taking the time and learning how to do this research so you can take your definitely valuable time and decide where do you want to start first and how do you start to build those business relationships with the federal agencies or state agencies, as we'll see later today. Again, government is vast. It does take a long time to dig through that. So we want to learn how to do that in an efficient manner. So again, market research provides that potential to increase your success rate. So we want to start off by asking ourselves a few questions. Because again, we want to do a targeted research. So if we ask which agencies or departments purchase your products and or services, again, who's buying what you're selling? Who are the buyers and where are they located? Well, as of the last fiscal year and into this fiscal year, there's been a dramatic change on where are those buyers, how are they located, and how are agencies going through the procurement process. We've seen a lot more consolidation in the contracting staff and a lessening of the available contracting officers, and again, part of that consolidation of staff. So that market has really changed. And again, market research will help us find where did they go and where do we need to make those new market connections. It also tells us, how often do they buy in what quantity? And this is an important question because we want to know, is it worth our time? If it is, we see a great opportunity, but the agency is something they only buy once a year, do we want to dedicate our time to chasing down that one potential opportunity, or do we want to move on to that client market where those are purchased much more frequently? Are future buys anticipated? What can we do? There's websites, procurement forecasts, there's other areas, and we can look at that procurement history. Is it an ongoing that we're seeing contract cycle after contract cycle, or is it kind of a one and done and we're having a hard time finding that, again, being purchased by that particular agency? Which contracts are due to expire, to be rebid, or terminated? Again, is this an ongoing need that the agency is reprocuring everywhere from 2 to 3 to 5 years? And where are we entering into that contract cycle so that we can be best positioned to be able to make sure we are ready to bid when that solicitation activity opens up again? We also want to ask, what did the government buy why did the government buy that particular product or service? What was it, a pricing? Is it incumbent experience? Was there a required need for local businesses that are local because there's an immediate response time required? So this is where we might want to do some research to see if we can find that past solicitation data so that we can see what is different from the past to the current solicitation that might help us understand how that evaluation process and determination of award was made. We also want to ask, who are our primary competitors in this market? With which agencies have these competitors received awards? Where are they finding that contracting success? And what resources will be needed to compete in this government marketplace? So we kind of have in the bottom corner here this competitor profile, this stopping to think, and we can research our competitors as well as that government contracting market, especially if they're a larger company. Where are they finding success? If we're looking for geographic diversity, what are they doing? Where are they establishing themselves in? Is there room for competition in that market? So we can kind of look at, and there's some good points here as far as resources, facilities, personnel, what strategy, what is their background, financial, and how can we apply some of those successful models to our own company and ask those questions as well. Again, all really critical components of getting ourselves prepared to begin doing market research. So to get started, it's best to even just start with, well, who are your current customers? What do they buy? When do they buy them? Where do you find them? And why would they buy? And how do you sell to them? So if we're new, oh, thanks, Anna. I just realized for some reason, let me restart. Oh, sorry, guys. Okay. Why didn't oh, because it's paused. There we go. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. I'm sorry, guys. There's nothing worse than having that presentation kick off and nothing's happening on your view. All right, so this was our agenda. Again, just kind of refresh the agenda. Move down here. Is this looking better, everyone? My lovely comic on why do research. And if I could get a raised hand that you guys are actually seeing the slides move now. Okay, thanks, Mel. I appreciate it. All right, so this is what we were talking about to why do market research. Again, it provides that potential to increase your success rate. And these are the questions that I was asking. And so this is the graphic that I was referring to when I was talking about that competitor profile, the personnel strategy, background, financial, products, markets, etc. So looking again at where those competitors are making inroads into that government contracting marketplace and using that to help make a determination, is there room for more competition? Maybe this particular market in this location, not ready yet. What do you need? What resources that are going to make you more competitive? Again, all of this is part of making that correct best use to provide that potential to increase your success rate. So let's talk again about starting by evaluating your current customers. So again, that who, what, when, why, where, how. But if you're currently well anchored into your commercial market in your local business geographic, and you are building those commercial clients, or maybe if you even do say roofing or residential remodel, those residential civilian, non-government, and you want to expand into that government market, you can, again, start looking at those, well, who are your clients now, and what these decision factors, how did they go about determining, how did they find you? How did that business relationship develop? And when we take a good, honest look at who are our current customers, we can often then flip that, well, who are those, oops, sorry guys, who are those government counterparts? Before we do that, I just want to talk a second about having a marketing plan, because one of the things that we often think about, or we don't think about often enough, let me rephrase that, is how are businesses finding, or how are your customers finding out about your business? And having a marketing plan of how you are promoting your business, how you are pushing your products, your services out into that potential for individuals or businesses or even federal contracting officers to be able to find you. Because this entire time that we're talking about market research, keep in mind that government is also doing their own market research, looking for the businesses to help them meet with their needs. So it's that two-way connection. Again, this morning we're mostly focusing on the you finding them component, but as we're going through and developing this, flip it occasionally to think about how are you making yourself available to be found? What do you have for a marketing plan where you're promoting your business and pushing that information out as well? Okay, so let's talk again. Commercial clients and who are those government counterparts? Uh, where are the, again, on that federal, the key stakeholders, the program decision makers, card holders, contracting officers, and again, those competitors, who are they working with for that government? And here, when I say government, I am talking all the way from federal to state to municipal, to the borough, down to our school districts, to police and fire, those emergency services, all of those various levels of government that are paid by some sort of tax base. All of that is under that realm of government contracting. So if we are doing remodeling, uh, commercial remodeling, tenant improvements, well, who would we start to have that conversation with for that federal? Well, who are the federal landlords? Who are the state landlords? If they're moving new tenants into these federally owned or state-owned facilities, how are they going to go about meeting those same process to make the facility meet that client's need? So keep that in mind too. There is almost always a government counterpart to pretty much every business activity that we have. Granted, some are limited to more of a testing, assessment, inspection services, but even those folks still need those contract opportunities as well. So if we're determining the who, let's think about the what. So what are those agencies' procurement practices? So again, if we're looking at federal, we have the FAR, we have the new procedural guidance that's kind of rolling out hand in hand with that new revolutionary FAR overhaul. On the state, we have our state administrative codes, Alaska administrative codes, that help set the boundaries, the how are we supposed to do this? What is our legal structure? And also that helps us determine where and how the agencies are going to market those needs, or if they're simply going to pick up a phone and call and ask for quotes. So understanding those procurement practices for those potential counterparts. What type of contracts are being utilized? What is the budget for that particular agency or department? And what are their program priorities? So these are all things that we can research and look and have a better understanding of that potential client. When? When is the activity up for re-procurement? Again, what is that contract cycle? And keep in mind, we sometimes focus so much on that federal, but that state and local for the boroughs, municipality, they have that same contract cycle as well. There are time limits for duration, and often they go through and they rebid and recycle, are looking for new opportunities. So next, where do we find those buyers? Is the contracting activity local, regional, or is up to a headquarters level? Well, state and local makes that a little easier, and we have more specific geographic boundaries. But when we're looking at that federal, again, we're looking at coast to coast. And again, with that changes in our contracting staff and changes in that contracting and buying process, especially for commercial activities, those contracting officers have really been playing a game of musical chairs and shifting and moving and being reorganized. So a lot of information to find out about. And then last, it never hurts to keep asking, why would they buy our goods and services? Is it because we are easy to find, we have a good website, we're marketing? Because when we, again, just that last nod to the marketing plan, don't forget that if we're talking about buyers, contracting officers that are available, that are here within our geographic region, you know, within the state of Alaska, that they are also residents of this state, and they're also going to be listening to radio. And just like any other consumer, then having those more traditional marketing plans can be of value for reaching out and making them aware of who you are and what you do. And last but not least, how would you sell to them? Is this a bid proposal process, or is this something that requires direct marketing? Is it a common item that the agencies are buying, and so there's a very obvious contractual solicitation process? Or, for example, like specialized training, new energy saving, new commercial facility maintenance processes, new monitoring systems, new fire alarm systems, for et cetera, that are new to the market. Again, there's that educational process. So you are going to be then building that direct marketing relationship just like you would with that commercial community. All right. So what information do we need? We've thought about it. Okay. We've got our questions lined up. We're figuring out why we're doing our market research. We're looking at that, who are those potential clients, kind of from that high, 10,000 foot view. But let's even tie this in more and define our target. So to be able to answer all these questions that we've just asked, what information is needed? Well, solicitation history. Are there incumbents? What is the agency information? Their spending history. Where are the contracting officer? How do we contact them? How do we reach them? What are the agency spending forecast? The nice thing on the federal is there is a lot of transparency, and agencies are required to post a spending forecast every year that outlines their budget goals. Now, granted, fiscal year 25, 26 has been a little bit unusual and a few things have been a bit upended, but we should see that information still start to normalize and start to be posted and is searchable. So what are the potential primes and subs? How do we fit into that contractual relationship? Has our business grown enough? Do we think that we could be the prime on those contract opportunities? Or if we are, for example, a specialty construction company, where are those subcontracting opportunities as well? And again, what is your market? Who are your competitors? Because those help really determine, again, that potential for prime or sub. So these targeted points, again, why are we searching? What are we searching for? How are we going to do it? And then that database is going to determine where we begin our search, which rolls us into gathering the market and gathering the data. And we're going to start with federal contracting market research. And as I mentioned towards the end, then we're going to talk about that state and local. All right. So how to research your market? I know, more slides and then 2 more slides, and then we are actually going to start digging into the databases. So now that we've discussed why, let's talk about how. So there's 2 when we start with federal. We have our current federal opportunities, and we have past federal contract data. So under those federal opportunities, it's going to give us that current snapshot, or we could look a little bit, maybe 30 days forward, maybe 60 days backwards using sam.gov, looking at what is out there on the market right now, what is open now, where are we at within our contractors cycle in regards to the fiscal year, into that contract cycle, and is this a seasonal activity? So we're looking at those current, and again, are there solicitations posted? Are we seeing pre-solicitations? How do we find that? All right, for past federal contract data, again, this has been there, done that, which agencies bought from whom, what type of contract, how was the set aside, how was the contract competed? Was it a sole source? Was it a small business set aside? The nature of the contract, some sort of indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, multiple award contract, or just a single purchase order, single definitive contract. So that contract type, how was it bid? And we can even go in and kind of grab the NAICS codes that we use to define the industry in which we operate, and we can do search to see which agencies are really hitting that particular NAICS code hard for those contract awards. And then last, what contracts have your competitors going to be awarded? Is again, sometimes if you have some specific competitors, looking up what they're doing, why reinvent if we've kind of got somebody that's already laid out that path in front of us? Okay, search criteria. Again, we talked about, remember, one more search goal, our search terms are what we're going to look for, how we're going to look for them. That database is where are we using that. So those search terms, again, we got to define the criteria. We got to define these opportunities. You've already heard me talk about those NAICS codes, that North American industrial classification. That's that numerical definition of what is the industry that you're in. So building search criteria is something that you're going to use over and over again. And it's great to have some sort of spreadsheet, have a notebook, have something, because it's not something you're going to build once and pitch, never going to use it again. You're going to find yourself continuously using that, and why rewrite it every single time? So gathering those keywords, how are you going to define your business, building up those NAICS codes so we can use them, one, for those industry identifiers. But if we go to the Census Bureau, that census.gov website for their NAICS code search, we can find not only the NAICS code, but look at the keywords that they use to define that industrial activity for that code. It's the best place to find keywords. And again, competitor, we can go into the SBA Small Business Search profile and look at those businesses. What keywords did they use? What NAICS codes did they use to define them, their entity? We can look at federal supply groups and product service codes. A couple of different ways to do it. And this is going to make me sad, the Federal Procurement Data System that was alive and well up until about a month ago. But that same concept of using that past procurement data, which we can now find in SAM, but we can also have a couple of different resources for looking up those. One I like in particular is the Outreach Systems. They are a company that provides a CRM service. We use their database for our client management, but they also have BidMatch, which is a solicitation search software. So they have some lovely tables for looking those up. It's really interactive, and I find it the easiest place to look outside of a federal database when you're trying to develop those federal supply groups or those product service codes. And the Department of Defense activity address codes, also great. You're looking for building inroads into a particular agency. These activity address codes are specific contracting officers at specific location. So if we want to find who are all the current contracting officers at the Alaska Army Corps of Engineers office, we can put in that DODAC code for their contracting office, use that as a search tool, and we can find out, well, who are all the active contracting officers here and now. It's a great way to find people when we're trying to reach out to an agency. And of course, within SAM, we have the federal organization codes that really helps us define how are those agencies broken down. What happened to FPDS? That's a good question, Ethan. And I have a very sad slide that'll explain it in just a second. And of course, procurement forecasts, and we can go to acquisition.gov. You can find pretty much all of them there. A lot of times you'll find that rolled up to the main agency, and then it breaks it down into subgroups that you can search and filter. So acquisition.gov/procurement-forecast is a great place to start looking for those. All right, so we talked about all the background we need, all of the data. How are we defining that data? Let's get into the federal databases, which is really what makes this webinar interesting. All right, so how is all of this data linked? Apologize, really dry, so I keep having to pause to drink water here. So this is a slide that I have been using for quite a long time, because often we get too focused on one avenue and we forget, especially for the federal arena, there is a lot of information that can really help tie all of this together. Now, here at the top, obviously we have sam.gov. This is that System for Award Management. But even that title has recently changed. I couldn't find that anywhere. Now it's just sam.gov. And SAM has access, and a lot of this information kind of filters through in the circular manner where we can find out all of that information. From SAM, we can search contract opportunities. We can now do that past procurement search. And we can then go from competitors. We can look at UEI numbers or business names in SAM, and then we can even hop over to SBA Small Business Search. That title changed about midway through last calendar year. They went from the Dynamic Small Business Search to the Small Business Search. Whole new website, new process for SBA. And we can do more information on those individual businesses. We can take a look at USA spending. Now, the data from USA Spending used to pull from FPDS, which is that Federal Procurement Data System, which was the past procurement database, but GSA has, what did they call it? They have retired that legacy system and have moved that over under SAM. So it's just one more component of SAM for looking at, and it's kind of spread out through multiple sections throughout that SAM website. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So, but we can take that information of that past procurement, which feeds USA Spending, and then we can roll that back around. Another tool that's really going to become more prominent is GSA's multiple award schedules, their mass contracts, those federal supply schedules. And they have a couple of different websites. We've got 3 here, and we'll take a look at those, where you can also research who are current schedule holders, where do you find schedule information, and we can even dig into that Federal Acquisition System, the FAS, and we can go into their schedule sales query, and we can find out what is the contract success by schedule. So looking at where are those agencies using these schedules over maybe looking into SAM for that past procurement. How are the agencies buying? And of course, we can do research on the agency themselves. And we're going to look at these as well. The agency budget website, forecast websites. We talked about that acquisition.gov, the Office of Small Business Program, and again, agency-specific websites, both on that national level and down to even regional levels. Government puts quite a bit of work into the websites, and so going there really can help us get to know that potential client. All right, let's talk about sam.gov. So we can see right here from the screenshot, front page, you can see the various things that they all have been moving under this one-stop shopping SAM website, from contracting to entity information. This is where we do our registrations, our federal hierarchy, our federal assistance programs, entity reporting, wage determinations, and of course, all of that contracting history. If you're registering, great, get started. This is going to become a very predominant database where we're seeing, I think FPDS is one of the last legacy programs that they wanted to move over into SAM. I think it's just been about a month, maybe a little over a month, since that hierarchy, that legacy system has been shut down and all of that data moved into SAM. We have, again, as I mentioned, the SBA Small Business Search. Here is the link to their website, and you can see even the front end in that process of how to sign in and claim your business. We used to do that through SAM. Now that's all done directly through the SBA Small Business Search site. We have USA Spending. Now, this is the website I didn't use as much. I like to use USA Spending when I wanted to see the flow of funds. And this really still is. You can do a lot more searches for direct award information. I think it's a little bit, it's harder to get into the details with USA Spending compared to previous, the FPDS and even into SAM. But if we want to know that flow of federal funds into our state, this is a great place to start because we can take a look at multiple things such as, well, how much funds are moving into the state of Alaska from the various federal agencies. And we have a quick snapshot here. I just kind of gathered this from last night. And so right here, we can see we're looking at, by that color match, we're looking at, you know, more than $7 billion has moved into the state through federal programs. We can come in here, we can search the award data and it kind of breaks it down. We can explore the data by agencies, by budget function, by object class, or we can even come in here and download that as well. So you can download all of that, go into the advanced search, and you can kind of grab this general information. You can download that and then really get into your Excel spreadsheets and start doing pivot tables where you can start sorting and making more sense of it. So as you can see, when we're looking in USA Spending and looking at those past award dollars, we can filter by the fiscal year and of course our recipient location. There are additional filters. I really didn't dig into that as much. If you're clicking on this search award and you can go in and you can kind of see the filters. There's about a half dozen or so that you can do to kind of massage that data. But this is what we're getting for results. We can see the number of contracts. We can see the number of the IDV, the indefinite delivery vehicle. Of course, I just would have to blank that acronym. More contracts, but these are, again, longer term, indefinite delivery. Again, will be, think the IDIQ contracts. We have our grant activity, our direct payments, loans, and other financial. And so if we're looking where are those funds filtering through, we can take a look at the grants and we can see which entities within the state of Alaska are receiving funds. We can see the funds moving into the various housing authorities. We can find those direct payments for support of governmental, the tribal governmental, the village government operations and grants for the village communities. So all of that, again, depending on that potential for your client, any of these entities that are receiving these, especially from the grant, loan, other, those are funds that are going to have to be spent within that fiscal time. They've defined what they're going to do with those funds, they've received those funds, and now they have to implement that. So there's a lot of opportunity. We get too focused on contracts, but don't forget there are these other flow of federal funds into our state of Alaska that we can tie into and look at and see if there's business opportunity there, again, depending on your line of business. And as you can see, it gives us the contract award, the recipient name, the obligations. There's about 6 more columns that I didn't really bother to get for the purpose of screenshot, but you can kind of get a good idea and we can play with that data. If you scroll down, it gives you a kind of a chart, a bar chart on spending by agency. It breaks it down to recipient, and then also that geographic is where I got the screenshot for the state of Alaska for total funds spent. So I had to make my memorial slide. I did this when FedBiz Ops went away and became contract opportunities. I'm sad. I personally love the Federal Procurement Data System, FPDS, and I got really good at it. So once you get really good at something, when it changes, it's like, oh, why did they have to do that? But it has moved into SAM. It has moved into multiple, instead of kind of having one spot where you could really move in and out of that data, you have those hyperlinks. It's kind of broken out into a couple of different things. The only thing I don't address in this particular webinar, and I will have a webinar where I'm really focusing on doing data pulls, heavy data pulls, going into the data bank and the data services to download those spreadsheets. That is a webinar that I'll work on and have, if not late summer, early fall, we'll get something on that on doing a deeper dive. Instead, I kind of focused more on that contracting and more current. But this is, yep, no longer in existence, and this is where it has moved into these various components of SAM.gov. So GSA Library, just a quick screenshot. GSA eLibrary is a great place to start. If we are looking at and we are seeing a trend or a potential direction where the federal government has made a determination through our current presidential administration that commercial activities should be centralized and has been directed GSA to do all of those commercial buys, all of those large buys, because again, that larger buying power should result in a cost savings. And so GSA in the last while has been in the process of centralizing to have acquisition assistance centers that each center will then support one specific agency. And we are going to see that being GSA, one of the biggest tools that they're going to use are their own federal schedules, especially for those commercial purchase buys, that commodity buys. I think that's going to be the best, strongest point where we're going to really see that roll out. So if that's an industry that you've been in and you had that relationship or starting to build that relationship with those contracting officers, and those contracting officers been centralized, there's a high probability that what you were selling to the government is now going to be procured through one of the GSA acquisition centers. Agency Acquisition Centers, AAS. So what we're going to do then is, well, one, what schedule would they use? Should we be on schedule? And that is a whole nother webinar that we will focus and get out on again this fall. But for now, for that quick search for doing our market research, we can come in here, we can use NAICS code, we can use a keyword, we can even put a business name and get a search result. So also, I'll show you that result, but just from my overall slide of how the data is linked, I wanted to give you a screenshot of the data to decision, the D2D, all of the various portals that you could do and go in and do the search, and also just a quick screenshot of the scheduled sales query and how you can go in and do that and build your report through the SQL. Okay, up. I guess I'm cheating. I will show you from here. I do have slides where how do you look up the vendors and where do you find that information a little further on. This is the teaser slide, so hang in there. All right, moving forward. All right, so agency-specific websites, again, forecasts we've talked about. The federal agency budget website, DoD, is fantastic. They have multiple. Department of Defense has comptroller websites. I have specific screenshots further on, but we can go in and if we can find that agency budget, it gives us an idea of that potential spend for the following fiscal year. Sorry guys, new mouse and that button is touchy. All right, and we also have Office of Small Business Programs. So we have the agency-wide OSDBU, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. This is a program that is meant to be that kind of insert point into how do you do business with this particular agency. So it's kind of their small business access point. And those are broken down into small business professionals or small business liaisons on a location by location basis for that particular agency. Either they're broken out into regions or geographic areas for areas of responsibility. But there is one main website where you can find that information. All right, still lots of things I'm throwing at you, but how do we actually get it done? Where do we get started? Oh, we're going to start in SAM. And we're going to start by, again, understanding what are we searching for? We want to keep that front and center because that's really going to direct how we get started. And we're going to talk about the domains for the search. So you're logged into SAM. You can do it without being logged in, but I recommend signing in first, having your individual SAM account so that you can log in, because as you start diving into deeper, some of it's just going to make you log in to see that information anyway. So we click in search and we have this filter by. So you can see the filters, those search potential, that how are we going to determine, again, those search results that we want are this screen, this option varies by which domain that we are selecting. So we can just do, we want to hit everything, and I can put in, like you see here, Alaska. I didn't pick a specific domain, I just put in the keyword Alaska and hit search. And you can see kind of a quick variance. We have something from an assistance listing program to a contract opportunity to it's just a broad mix of information. So again, we want to have that targeted approach. So selecting the domain is really going to help give us those filters, and we're going to get better search results. So for contracting, we are going to have that contracting opportunities, contract awards, subcontracting plan reports, or other transactions. So we can really get specific under that contracting. We can click on federal assistance, and we can again see federal assistance reports or sub-award reports. We can click on the entity information. We can say all entity information. Maybe we're trying to search to find potential subcontractors. We can say entity itself. We're looking for a specific person or a specific UEI number. we can click on the disaster response registry. And that's relatively new for under that entity information. This is really expanded again in the last couple of months for those potential FEMA. So if you're in an area for emergency response, maybe you sell software programming or vendor, specialize in accounting for emergency, you're looking for the people in that industry, there you go. It's a good way to kind of dig into and find those vendors, again, under entity information. We can also look at responsibility and qualification. There is a little flag and, of course, of exclusion. So we have a couple of little flags where contracting officers can determine, one, is the potential awardee eligible for award? That would be the exclusions, and that responsibility qualification if an agency had an interaction and determined that there were responsibility or qualification issues, they can also flag and add comments to that vendor history. So if something for your own SAM record you want to be aware of and have a better understanding of. All right, next we can go into that federal hierarchy, and again, understanding how the government is set up in those various levels really makes it easy to find out who's living where and how could we engage in. I actually use this quite a bit when I'm trying to research. And then, of course, we have the wage determinations, which, of course, is a whole nother webinar topic. So where to start? So again, you can see I've started by selecting my domain, contract opportunities, and then we're going to see how does that data, how are we going to take that same bit of data and flow through these various websites to find what we want. SAM, and of course, into FPDS, which is still more SAM, so at least we're not switching websites anymore. So I work to remain positive. Back into USA spending, where was that flow of dollars? If I heard a rumor of an activity supposed to be posted, I can do some deep diving. Has even, which agency would have that? Is there a state grant coming through from federal funds? How do I tie into that? Look into USA spending. I can go into the agency websites. Have the agencies posted anything? If it's a big enough activity or new move or something, a new process, new centralizing of contracting officers, those things, we can find that in the agency websites. We can even find for the Alaska District or Alaska State for that. We can look at budget websites, is that information available? And of course, back to SAM, I should change that, it should be the small business search, because now we're looking at individuals. How do we fit into that contracting string? And then, of course, to competitor websites. So we can move back and forth between all these various websites to find those full answers. So again, we're going to start in SAM. We're going to do that search. We're going to select, again, our domain. We're looking at contracting. I'm looking at contract opportunities. At this point, I want to see what's that here and now snapshot. And we're going to come in here and we're going to use the various filters to help find what's going on. Now for this screenshot, I think the only filter I used was just the word Alaska. But I want to talk about the importance of using the correct filters to really help you find. And under that contract opportunities, again, we can do that keyword search, that any word that's simple. Oh, old slide, sorry about that. We can look at the federal organizations, the dates, the notice type, the product or service information, those NAICS codes, those PSC codes, the set aside type, if we're looking to see, if we're thinking about, are we seeing the trend for that particular activity that we want to get into, that contract cycle, is it an 8A set aside? We can determine, we can do a search by 8A or pub zone, or it's just small business. We can look at place of performance to help narrow down contract award details, and of course the status, active, inactive. Don't forget to, the default is when we go into contract opportunities and we do a search, the default is active. And if you're looking at something that might have just closed, the bid date just came and went, you might have to then select inactive to be able to find that solicitation activity. And of course, all the contract office details. Okay, so let's start tying all this data together. So this is a particular solicitation. that I pulled last night. So it's the Denham Bridge Stringer Lumber. We can see that this is agencies, the Department of the Interior, the National Park Service, and here's their classification. It is a small business set aside. They're looking for lumber. And here's that NAICS code under sawmills. So this is the important data that we need to pull together and to think about if we want to know, has the agency purchased this before? Because now I'm talking frequency. I've done enough work with the National Park Service to know that every spring they start buying their construction supplies to have depoted in the Anchorage office to be distributed out to the various remote park locations so that those park rangers and those their direct staff can start doing maintenance and repair for these various park locations. So some of the work is subcontracted, but a lot of it is done by seasonal employees. So if you are in that construction sales supply, not necessarily as a contractor, but you sell the stuff needed for construction, I know me and my technical terms, but you sell the stuff, this is an opportunity. Well, all right, so we can see this is posted, but I want to know the history. So how would I distinguish the history of these sales compared to all the other agencies and the other locations? What information do I need? And this is the same process that I used to use for the federal procurement data search. What are my important bits of data? So here we have the DODAC for the National Park Service in the Alaska region. And it's this particular contracting office here. Here's that physical address. So that's that DODAC that it's tied to, the agency National Park Service, that NAICS code, the PSC code, and the place of performance in Alaska, because you can see here it's going to be delivered in Alaska. And here's the information that they're looking for. All right, so then we can take that same data and we can, if we were doing it FPDS, I just wanted to show you one last, it's no longer available moment. I should have had my sad face here as well. But you can see this is what I used to do to tie that back into the agency, the GSA, if it was in multiple award schedule, you know, coming in and doing that same search. But now we're flipping that over to the SAM process. So instead of, and you can see my filter domain has changed because now I want to go into contracting and I want to look at contract awards. I no longer want to look at current opportunities. I have this information that I want to plug into the filter under the contract awards so that I can find, has the agency purchased this type of product before? I want to find frequency, I want to find incumbents, I want to find out the volume and where it's done. A lot of times businesses get a little focused on, I want to know the incumbent information just because I want to know the price. Well, pay attention just as a quick, don't get caught in that trap that you only want the incumbent information because you want to know what they were, you know, what they had bid before. We want to make sure that we have a very, you know, there's not been a huge change in the scope of work from that past cycle to this current contract opportunity. So that ties back into here again, what was it they were looking for? And here's that treated glowworm stringers. Now I don't have that as an important detail, but this is where once we pre-filtered, we can start looking for, have they bought that particular product before? So I went in here into the search, again, the awards, I did a search, I went for the office. So here again, under that contracting, I clicked on the little ellipsis, and under the second section for the department, I put in National Park. It pulled up all of the lists of potential for the National Park Service, and I was able to say, hey, look, here's the Alaska Regional Office. I went down, I entered the NAICS codes for sawmill, and I did put in the place of place of performance for the state of Alaska. It's just cut off. You can't quite see it here, the state territory. And then I was able to filter and see past contract awards. Now, the one thing, FPDS, I was pretty good at being able to find pretty close what I thought was the incumbent award. Now, this being a commercial sales, we might not find that same data, but we can actually go in and we can see here, looking at this table, that here is the company, here is that contract number. We can see the awardee information, we can see the contract award, and if we click the highlight link to view the activity is actually the contract number, and here it is blown up, where we could kind of see this is the information that we can scroll down and read for this contract award activity. So again, we are going to see the total contract value. We can see any modification history under this, and this did scroll down through all of these different activity. It did have the description. Here you can see the place of performance for Alaska. Okay, well, not an exact match if we're looking for that Anchorage delivery, but again, we can kind of see, yes, the National Park Service is purchasing various types of lumber. There is a description of the materials further down. Again, I just won't grab it for purposes of screen. So we can find that information, those past awarded data, and we can find a bigger history that's now available in SAM under that contract award data. All right, so tying the data together, I just pulled another that I want to go in and do a live demo, but I think what I'm going to do to just make sure that we have enough time, let me go through some more of the slides and then we'll come back and we'll see, make sure that we can get into SAM and I can show you how I pulled that information together. So again, this was another opportunity that we found. We can see the important details. Is there a DODAC? Well, honestly, for once, we didn't have it. We have Corps of Engineers, and it's kind of interesting because the Corps of Engineers is a paid service provider for Army Contracting Command, and so they have a couple of different NAICS codes under which that falls. So if we're really curious, well, what is the NAICS, the DODAC for this W2SN NDIST Alaska, the Pacific Division Engineering, we can actually go to the DODAC site, and I had that on our search criteria list, and we can put that in, and we can do a search for it. But we have this, it's a small business set aside. This is for architect engineering, engineering services for that NAICS code, and of course the description. So non-personal services, et cetera, engineering. So I grabbed this opportunity in particular because this is a really great way to tie into looking at those multiple award contracts. And if you're looking at contract award data, how do you know the contract type? So I'm kind of tweaking that. I'm not going to go into SAM right now and find that particular incumbent history for that activity, but instead I want to kind of show you how this information is broken out. So I did go in, and just because I had used them as an example, I went ahead and used them as an example this year, that I looked up a GSA contract. I actually went in through, and I'll show you how I found that contract number, but I plugged that in. So I went in contracting awards and I entered just that contract number. And this is how you can tell if the type of contract award that you have. So we have our contract here. So this is the activity, the delivery order. So here we have an exercise and option. If we come down here, we can see, again, this is the main GSA contract award. But if you're looking at your contract data, and this was the same even in FPDS, where you would have two contract numbers. So you would have the award type. So here it says delivery order. This is a modification. We have the contract number, mod 1, for that delivery order under that parent contract here, and starting off with the just GS00, we know right here that this is a GSA contract. Now, we are suspecting that there's going to be a trend for those commercial commodities that we're starting to see more and more use of GSA schedules for both this fiscal year and moving into the next fiscal year. So this is really important data to understand, to know what you're looking at. So if we're seeing this GSA schedule, and then here I can come in, I'd look at that award, because this is all on one page, because it's pulling up all of the history of the awards tied to this particular GSA schedule. So here's the original award, and we can see that the agency was GSA under their FAST program, and there's that particular contracting office. So again, in that PIIDs, that procurement instrument identifier, ID for identifier, so that contract number. So how did we want to find that? If we're looking at GSA, if we're looking at things going through GSA schedules, so kind of switching gears, but this is an important bit to understand for one of our tools for our market research. The best place to start is the GSA e-library. Well, I showed you that screen and that particular screen had the website on top of it, or listed underneath, but we came in right to the GSA library and I just put in that NAICS code. Well, I've done digging before and I wanted to narrow it down. I could have just put in the keyword engineering or just the 541330. If I start with engineering, I'm going to get all of the various opportunity subcategories, or as they're called, SINs under the GSA world. And you can see here, special item number, SIN. And we can find this is the subcategory under which we're going to do engineering services. So I have this. If I click on this, I can then find, you go to that homepage for that particular engineering services. We can see here, we can find all of the current contract holders under this solicitation. If you have questions regarding that solicitation, here's that contact point. But then if we scroll down that same page, here's a list of all of the, and I sorted it by city, state. So we could see here's the list of all of the contractors here in Alaska that have that GSA there, that are GSA schedule holders. So this is searchable information in contract opportunities if we want to see, again, if we're looking at one, is GSA something we want to look at, who's already on that GSA, maybe we want to use them as potential primes that we can enter into subcontracting, or maybe any sort of joint venture, you know, that again, prime sub type of relationship, and looking for individuals that already have that existing GSA contracts. And again, as you can see, looking up that same contract number for, and here it is. So I went back into SAM and I was able to just search. Just heads up when you're searching an contract in SAM, no dashes. Okay, so let's talk a bit about agency forecasts, agency budget, and the Office of Small Business Programs, or the OSDBU offices. So these are online resources that are going to help us better understand our potential customer, what are the things that they are focusing on, what's important to them, where are their concerns. So just as an example of an agency website, I pulled up the USDA, US Department of Agriculture. The Forest Service is one of the departments under the USDA agency. And this is their main national website here, forest.usda.gov. And right on their homepage is post-wildfire restoration. We've had some major shifts in clients resulting with a lot of wildfires, excessive heat, and then into rainy seasons that have rolled into mudslides. So absolutely, the Forest Service is very much concerned. It's right here on their homepage. This is something that's front and center. It's important enough to them, they're posting it on their website. Well, if this is a realm in which business engages, if this is where you want to be and the client you're looking at, here's where you can even start looking and doing the research. Where are your opportunities to engage with the Forest Service related to either wildfire, you know, and the brain went blank. Wildfire prevention, putting out fires, fighting fires, restoration, reseeding efforts, all of those various things. You know, this is a great way to start. Well, here we are in Alaska. So then let's go and look at the Alaska website. So again, we can see here, and all I did was search for Forest Service Alaska. Found the website, and again, there's all of the information on the various Forest Service areas, Chugach or Tongass, here within the state of Alaska. So we can start finding, well, what are the agency on a national level concern? How is that dialing down into our immediate community? And what terms, what language is that agency using so that when we approach them to be able to provide services within this realm, that we're talking language, we're using language, and we're talking to them in a format, in a manner, and about topics that that agency is focused on and concerned. So again, if you're looking at that for a commercial client and you're working with, say, the Small Business Development Center for building out those potential markets, this is how we are doing that on that federal scale. We are researching the agency and we're looking at, we're using their language, their concerns, and where do we fit into those things so that when we have a icebreaker, we know how to communicate with them regarding those topics. So here, what is that agency mission? So another agency website, again, Corps of Engineers, and a lot of great information on their website. And this is for the Alaska Army Corps of Engineers, Alaska District website. And they have a lot of activities. They really work hard to keep this a current website. And you can see they have public notices coming up, news release, activities that they're going into. The Corps of Engineers is involved in any of the flooding and possible village relocation here in the state of Alaska. Again, if this is where you are looking to do business, take the time to review the agency websites. Agency forecasts, acquisition.gov, I mentioned at the beginning of the hour, when we're talking about looking for, that how is it all tied together, this is a great start point. Here's the web link. We could go all the way through Department of Agriculture. This will take you to the web page for the agency itself. And under this column, you can click and you can find the procurement forecast. I'm most familiar with the Department of Agriculture, and it filters, and you can actually go in and then filter down by agency and by geographic location. And you go through and find those. What is the agency budget? What have they asked for? And that forecast is just that. Receive our budget, these are the activities that we hope to accomplish and have those contracts on the street. Some of them even give a time frame, first quarter, second quarter, etc. And it gives you that priority of what those agencies would like to do should those funds materialize. You can also look for agency forecasts in SAM. Some agencies, they have that information together. They kind of blast it out there in SAM. You can go in using these various keyword search, again, all domain, or you can even go into contracting if you want, but just use procurement forecasts, and you can see that here I found a couple that were just recently posted, one in February, one September. You can also do a search for small business events and any industry days and any of that communication between agency and that contracting public. The OSDBU website information, again, here's the website that gives you this list of federal OSDBU offices. You can break it down. There's a link. But if you even just do a search of Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, you could probably even do the OSDBU if you don't want to spell it out. And you can see I just had quite a list. I could have kept scrolling. I did a Google search and we could find it: Department of Commerce, the VA, Department of Transportation, Health and Human Services, HHS. So great place if you're really wanting to start new into an industry. This is a great resource as well. The DoD budget and forecast site, and I did just refresh all of these links last night. That site is still there, still going. The comptroller.defense.gov/budget materials. And you can go through, and if you scroll down, you can see all the various things that you can break out to. US Army, US Navy, Air Force budget. These are pretty solid if that is the level of game that you are playing. If you are looking at large engineering potential, base modification, base rejuvenation, any of those, because they will break them down even by base location in some states. We can see some international activity, but great place, because again, if they're funded, they're more likely to move forward with those procurement activities. Researching other businesses. So we talked about competitor. You guys, that could have been your webinar drinking game. How many times did I say that word competitor? But if we're looking for it, and again, we kind of showed you, we could go into SAM and click entities for that domain. But here's the small business search. And what this does is this pulls from SAM itself, all of the registrants in SAM, but all of the search results are small business. So it pre-filters. So if you're looking for the University of Alaska, and you're not going to find it here because it is an organization, not a business. Just for example, you'd have to go back to SAM. But we can come in here and you can do a keyword search if you want an individual, or you can click directly to search filters, and you can kind of see a few across the top. And again, I just use that engineering. We can start looking by location, and I had selected Alaska. The new small business search, you don't have to. It actually defaults to all states. It doesn't start with a geographic restriction like you needed to with the predecessor website. But you can go in here and use this filter, and again, find those companies, find that information. You can break it down by SBA certification, keywords, business type, etc. Researching other businesses in SAM. Again, here, I just want to let you know, we come into entity information and I just selected entities. And depending on which subset, again, it really changes that filter. I just plugged in that same NAICS code and location for Alaska. And you can see this is where I'm going to get all the various. And please note, you're only going to see the active registrations, not the inactive. You would have to come down and filter for both active and inactive to get this list. But then at the top corner, you can actually download this entire listing. Same as the small business search, you can export that data as well. Great way if you're looking for, say, as a supplier or a support agency, want to out industry, to let them know to market to that company. It's just a great place to find those businesses. So we can come down here, find all of that information. All right, so I want to do a quick talk about searching state and local purchasing activities. You guys still hanging in there? All right. So let's talk about that for Alaska, state of Alaska purchase. State of Alaska is pretty well set up via their website information. And you can start by simply going to alaska.gov, and on that home page, click on business. You can see the different categories. I don't have a screenshot of that homepage, but if you click on business, or you can go directly here, and it has everything from starting a business. You scroll down, and it has a section on state contracts. So you can click on it, and it takes you right into Alaska Product Preference Program, the IRIS Vendor Self-Service, Procurement Information, General Services, Procurement Information, Transportation. So right off State of Alaska website, business, scroll down, state contracts, and we can get started. So, or we can go directly to the State of Alaska's Office of Procurement and Property Management, OPPM. And they moved to this early 2020s. I don't remember exactly when they consolidated. It used to just be all under the Department of Administration, but this OPPM was stood up, I believe it was during pandemic, so sometime early 2020s. And you can see where the various things that they have. So they do have, OPPM has these Alaska Centers of Procurement Excellence. And what these are these are statewide contracts that any of the buyers from any of the state departments can use. So these, this office is the one that was responsible for going out and procuring and setting up. And these are definitely indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, pre-agreed contracts. There's multiple vendors allowed under each one of these centers. And if you click on it, you can see a list, and then the state buyers can go in and basically do just like you think of it, GSA, but place a delivery order or a task order, buying agreement, and order directly against these existing contracts. So depending on the industry you're in, these are worth looking at as well. And there is a contract cycle when they open this up for onboarding new contracts. So that's worth looking into, again, depending on your industry. For the state of Alaska, we've kind of got it broken into a couple of different centers. So we have the state's online public notices, and I have the link right here. You can simply Google State of Alaska online public notices. It takes you here. You click the search notices, and you can pull up for category. You want to select procurement. You can do geographic location. The search is not very expansive. In most cases, you kind of want to try to figure out, which geographic location is responsible for it. You can play with the subcategories or even the department if you know which department you're looking at, but then it's all posted here. So we can kind of see Sterling Highway, live fish transportation. And again, I just pulled this list last night, so this is very current. So you can find those opportunities. If you're in the construction industry, engineering, road maintenance, road development, we would want to go directly to the State Alaska Department of Transportation. First, though, I just wanted to give you the website for the State of Alaska Vendor Self-Service. This is a great place. You can register as a vendor, register your vendor account. They use the NIGP codes for industry type that are specific to state. Same concept as NAICS codes. The NIGP codes are developed more for accounting use and accounting ledger use, whereas the NAICS codes really are, the only thing they care about is just that industry designation. So we'll find a lot of states use the NIGP codes instead for their procurement identification. But you can go in here, you can register as a vendor, you can set up an account. But what I want to talk about is the other big website for the state is here, the Department of Transportation and Public Facilities, for all of the construction related services. This is where you're going to go. If you're looking for construction opportunities, say from maybe there's a needed with the Department of Natural Resources, yes, you're going to find that usually posted through the online public notices. For construction for the state, this is the main website. I've got the link right here. You can kind of see supply services, rolls down. You can see their bid that the state is posting through Bid Express for their electronic bidding. This is the services that they contract for, that where they're posting their bids. So if you are really tied into state opportunity, this might be a solicitation search provider that you want to look at and see if you want a membership with, so that you are getting those announcements from the state DOT on a timely basis. All right. Sorry about that pause. All right, so we can see we have our construction bidding schedule, requests for proposals, related services, and also towards the bottom of that page, we have all of the state equipment fleet and other information. Now, like the federal government, the state does have a little bit of spending transparency, those expenditures, and it's called Checkbook Alaska. It used to just be Alaska Checkbook, but they changed the name up a little bit, so it's now Checkbook Alaska. This is the website here, and we can see we can download the various expenditure reports. I've kind of highlighted it here, where you can do general fund expenditures, categorized by function account, total fund expenditures. But we can kind of see again, where is the state money's being spent, and we can do a little bit of research, where's the state, who are getting those contract awards, how are they buying. Again, you kind of do need to have an idea of those NIGP codes. It's been a little while since I've actually dug into one of their expenditures. They usually download it either as a PDF document or as a comma separated value, an Excel spreadsheet, or whatever spreadsheet software that you are using. And then you can often go in there, do some pivot tables, do some searching, and kind of find out, okay, which departments are buying what you're selling within the state of Alaska. They do have some charting information, again, top department name, top vendor names, top expense type, And we can find that information as well. That was just at the bottom of this page here. So again, checkbook.alaska.gov, find that information. So we can do some research to kind of find out where's the state spending. That is nice. Now, on a state level, fantastic, but let's talk about our SLED, as we call it here, the state, local, and education. So often we get so fixated on getting those federal contracts that we're really not paying attention to the volume of funds that move, especially from the federal through the state, accepted by the state, and then filtered down to the various boroughs and counties. So there is a lot of federal funds that move down. They're actually being spent by our boroughs or cities of the village, regional corporations, all of these that have received those funds through those grants programs. What are they buying? So we can also even do a search. I just kind of pulled the top 5 here, but here's a great list of all the various counties. And you can even replace and do a search of, North Slope purchasing, Northwest Arctic purchasing, and find these procurement websites. And again, I just updated all of these links last night. So we can do, Municipality of Anchorage, Mat-Su Borough, Fairbanks, Kenai, Juneau. I've got those links, but you can continue to search all the way through and find find their sites and see how are they posting their solicitations. Is there a particular vendor that they're using to post all of the solicitation activities? Are they posting them right on their website? How do you register to be a vendor for that particular local? For like Juneau, we have one person that, or I think they're a team of 2, that covers both city and borough of Juneau, and that's their purchasing office, covering for both. So we want to do that delve and look at the opportunities within those boroughs, and you can find a lot of opportunity. And we are contacted on occasion by some of these northern boroughs where they're not finding the vendors as quickly as they need, and they're looking for that additional assistance. So if you are willing to travel throughout the state and you provide services that really work being a mobile mobile company that can travel, feel free to check out those contracting opportunities throughout the state of Alaska. Other local purchasing, this is again that education component. Don't forget about this as well. So our University of Alaska, we are a state entity. We are paid, there are state budget as well as other income generated through tuition and that, but the university has a centralized procurement, UAF purchasing, UAA purchasing, but it's all rolled under one centralized procurement for the University of Alaska, and they do post bid opportunities directly on their procurement website. We also have the school districts. So as an example, I have just the Anchorage and the Mat-Su that also have where they post opportunities, especially for school maintenance, school related. But don't forget, we can also do that same for all of the various subgroups under our borough, such as police department, fire departments, the school districts that have procurement opportunities as well. All right, so just a quick roll up. We have about 5 minutes left. What I'd like to do is just see, does anyone have any particular questions or activities or how to search for any particular activity? We have a couple minutes left. I could either give you that time back or we could dive into SAM and do an example search if anyone has a preference. They plan to do more webinars on pulling data using, like I used to have featuring FPDS, but to do that on a very highlighted SAM search where I really dive into doing the data downloads and getting into the data banks. So keep an eye out for that this fall. But at this point in time, I'd like to go ahead and thank you for joining me this morning. If you think of anything after the fact or have any questions regarding this topic or want to see any other future topics, please feel free to reach out to our office. Here's our contact information. Let us, if we can assist, if there's an opportunity that you're trying to find that past procurement data or looking for opportunities and you want to have more directed assistance and how to find those opportunities, by all means, reach out to us, schedule. We're happy to help you do a deep dive, do that market research specific to your company to help you find those opportunities and define that procurement history. Well, everyone, thank you for joining me this morning. I'm going to go ahead. I don't see more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and officially close today's webinar.